Welcome. Today, we're going to be talking about LibreTexts Adapt, the adaptive homework system that comes along with the LibreTexts universe, or the LibreVerse as we talk about. My name is Justin Shorb, and I lead up the LibreTexts Academy, which is for professional development, helping faculty to get started. And we'll talk a little bit more about that at the end as well. So we want to thank everyone for joining. Um, I did want you guys to actually be able to play around with Adapt while we play. So I'll be talking a little bit about introductions while I leave this slide up. But if you want to, you can pull out your phone, scan that QR code. It takes you to what we call a formative homework system where you can log in anonymously and then just kind of play around with some different question types. It's going to open up to our discuss it question type, which is interactive. But at the top of the screen, you'll be able to see. I'll at least show you. Oop. Copy. Open it up. So what you'll see when you go ahead and join is this homework set. And I'll bring the QR code back up in a second in case you didn't. There is an interactive homework set there. And at the top is all of our different questions. So you can feel free to play around with that while I'm talking and explore. And then feel free to ask any questions towards the end if you want to do that. But I do like to have people actually open up Adapt and get to play around with it during this seminar. And I will be hitting on a lot of those question types as we go so that you can see kind of the explanation behind how we use them, how they're implemented, and then how you can do this in your class as well. Anyone need this? Or actually, I'll put, oh, good. Neil already put it into the chat. So otherwise, if you're on your computer, feel free to use the link in the chat. Excellent. So the tagline that we like to use here at LibreTexts is open education without the profit. So we are a not-for-profit company. Nothing about what our fees that you might see goes into our pocketbooks. We don't make anybody any money. And what we really want to do is lower the cost of education for students. We are developed by faculty and librarians, academic librarians, and other administrative staff who volunteer to lower these student costs. But we started off by thinking about textbooks first. Those are expensive. But finding a replacement for a textbook is just not enough to avoid these for-profit education materials, because textbooks from a publisher often have ancillary materials, interactives, course management tools, homework and assessment, including question banks, methods for delivery of those, having secure data sets and answer keys, as well as having things be accessible. So if you listened to my talk yesterday, we went through basically from starting off as a wiki textbook to expanding through all of what the LibreVerse offers, all the different platforms. And today we're going to talk specifically about the Adapt homework system. So we are not new to the game. OER and open content, open source homework systems have been around for an awful long time because people have wanted to do free and shareable homework sets across campuses. So you might have known about My Open Math or Numbers or WebWork. There's a bunch of one that exists out there. A lot of them come out of math and science, so you can have algorithmic questions. And then there are some other more intensive ones and other specialty niche ones like H5P that all exist. So those all existed. And when LibreTexts went to start building a homework system, we did not want to force people to reinvent everything that they've done. There is a lot of OER content in the world. There's a lot of open source content in the world. And we wanted to make sure that people could use that. So what we built with Adapt is actually an umbrella. Yes, and as someone pointed out, those often require your own server. So what we built is Adapt as a interface that allows us to have WebWork questions, IMathAS servers like MyOpenMath, H5P problems that you could define either elsewhere, or bring them into our H5P studio, or even our newest one, which is the Forge, which is also a native technology of ours. But in addition to hosting all of these on the back end, we are allowed to expand our repertoire of things that we can make available to students. So we do have obviously basic QTI type questions that come from Canvas, that kind of a structure. We also have chemistry structure drawing tools called Sketcher. We've had threaded audio, visual, and text discussion threaded conversations. That's our Discuss It platform. And this allows us to have this adaptable growth. So what happens is that students, they could go straight to the Forge or to any of these different platforms. That would be really, really complicated, and it would mean that they have to have a single sign-on for every single one, different servers for those. Or instead, they can go straight to just Adapt and then be presented with a homework system that underneath the hood could be all these different technologies. Our Adapt system, since it's part of LibreTexts, can also integrate with our textbooks. You can embed your assignments right into your textbook courses, and Adapt can link straight to your campus LMS or course management system like Canvas. So all of these things can be interlinked, interplayed because of the way that LibreTexts works as an entire ecosystem and not individual platforms. So when you do go look into Adapt, you'll see that you can choose the type of question you want to build, a WebWork question, an IMathAS question. There's an H5P one there as well. And then once you choose that native type, we have all these different options for building the standard questions you would have. We do have a whole nursing library of questions that are tied to NCLEX categories. We have Sketcher, which is our molecule viewer. If you're familiar with the chemistry world, then you might have heard of MolView. The MolView people work with us to build our homework system with our Sketcher molecules. And our Discuss It question, which we'll get into a little bit later. And if you click on that QR or the link in the comments, the first question that you saw will be the Discuss It question. And I'll kind of go over kind of how the structure of that works as well. So from the student's end, what you're seeing right now, if you clicked on that link or you use the Yuga QR code, then you'll be logged in as a student and you'll see this screen. And then you'll see all these numbers across the top. But you don't know that some of these might be MyOpenMath or IMathAS questions. Some of them might be H5P questions. Some of them might be WebWork questions. But all of those are interchangeable within one single homework set, one login, one assignment, one grade. It lowers that cognitive load for students as well. And makes your life easier. So let's go ahead and explore a couple of these. I'm going to open up this assignment. So question number 1 that you would have been taken to, and looks like people are already engaging. Awesome, I love it. This is our Discuss It type of question. I'm gonna go ahead and zoom in the screen a little bit, so hopefully it's easier for you to see. At the top is some instructions for how to go about interacting on these prompts. And then down below, you'll see a prompt. So this is a prompt that you can reply to. And then number 2 up here is a second prompt. So you can have multiple prompts or multiple things all part of one assignment and Discuss It and have people investigate. You can choose to set it up as a professor, as being text only or audio only or video only. The most common use of this right now in the LibreTexts world is with foreign language classes, Spanish, and then a growing number of French courses, because they take in asynchronous exercises where students can log in and do their homework at different times, but still have them interact with each other and talk to each other by using videos. So then you can write those things out there. And you can set up different grading options, such as initiating discussions or replying to discussions. So those of you who have been messing around in here, you'll notice that starting a question thread would have turned this green. And then if you replied to somebody, then you would have gotten full credit, because the full credit requires submitting to initiate one thread and then reply to one comment from somebody else. So you can go through and see some people are going ahead and throw that in there. Feel free to play around and answer any questions you want to. And this link will be live after the talk as well, because we'll post this on the website so people can play around as well. Question number 2. This one gives you an example of a interactive graphing structure. And we'll talk about what type of what type of technology is behind this, but we just like to show off a few different examples. This one uses our GeoGebra, so you can see this interactive graphing tool to be able to answer that question. Number 4 is a drag and drop type of a homework. And you probably, if you're familiar with what this looks like, then you might already kind of know that this is based on H5P behind this. If you're asking questions about how to answer this, you click on the new thread to start a new one, or at the bottom, new comment to reply. So yes, Neil, reply. Thank you. I think number 4 was the one. Yep. So if you're familiar, this one is an H5P question. This is an example of our Sketcher. So you can draw molecules and have those graded. Another thing that's really cool is you can submit, you can scan a molecule. So you can use your camera phone to draw a structure out and then scan that, and it will give you a first pass. Obviously, you can still edit it, make sure it looks good to draw these molecules. And we are building and growing more and more interactive questions. So this is one of our native question types. It's 3D, highlighting different parts of the skull. And here's another discussion where this one's actually been used in a chemistry class where it's based on text only. So then you have to start to explain things. This can be a really good tool if you're worried about generative AI in your class and you want to make sure people are discussing things. You might want to use videos. This is an example of a question that does algorithmic. So different numbers can show up for different students, and you can include help and things like that. So I'll let you keep playing. The last one I think is also discuss it. So I'm not going to jump on that one again. Okay. Oh, this is actually another H5P question. Great. So feel free to play around with those. And I'm going to go back and take a look at this exact same question set, but within Adapt. So if you log into Adapt, you'll start off by just going straight to your courses. And I am currently working with the, where is it? Oh, Introduction to Adapt. This is the homework set that you guys have. So this is that assignment within that course, the Introduction to Adapt that you're playing around with right now. And then from the back end, you can see that within this homework set, I have a discuss it type question, an IMathAS question, a H5P question. These are submit molecule, which is our sketcher type questions, a multiple choice, which is the standard QTI type question, and then H5P questions again. And all of these are delivered to the student seamlessly. So you can't log in and look at this right now, but if you are looking at your Adapt assignment, you would have to end your session because this is a formative question, so it's actually anonymous. So you'd have to end your session and then log in. You won't be able to see this exact course, even if you log in. I'm just going to walk through that. So I'm just showing you what the back end looks like for me as the instructor for what you're looking at there. Feel free to keep playing around. I'm going to walk through some other stuff that we do allow just to give you some idea of the capabilities that Adapt has. First of all, it is an OER library. So just like everything else in our world, we are LibreTexts. We care about making a library of free and open source, open content questions as well. So as of April 16th, this library had over 260,000 questions, a bunch of thousands worth of questions of all these, and only about 438 Sketcher, which is one of our newer technologies, and only 215 questions that are discuss it based. Those are our two newest technologies that we've added. And I went through today and updated these numbers. We're already up to just 6 months later, over 310,000 questions in our database. We've built 3,000 more Sketcher molecule questions, and hundreds of more discuss it questions have been built in the last 6 months. So this is ramping up really quickly. I just wanted to show you how much this is being used, how this library is growing, and to let you know that even if you don't use Adapt in your classes, Adapt is still an instructor OER library. You can go take a look at these questions and see if maybe there's something you can adapt for your class. So this is a library of questions as well. Yep, and I will show that. Here's another one as well, which is the learning trees. So all those questions can be used as different parts of building adaptive learning trees, and I'm going to walk through how to do that. So typically, a question could be given 2 or 3 tries for students to try to do it. So if they get it wrong, they can try again. If they get it wrong again, they can try it again. And that's a good way to give students a chance to try to learn something by giving them multiple tries. But it doesn't really help them with their metacognition of trying to figure out where they went wrong. So what a learning tree is that it starts off with a question, but if you would like to earn more attempts at this question, then you must use this tree to go and take a look at this brown box, which is the blue boxes are questions. The brown boxes are expository or some text that you can interact with, but it's not a graded question. So this brown one here is a strategy map. So students are given a strategy map for them to look at and say, okay, In order to completely do this question correctly, you need to be able to do this task, this skill. And then when you can do all of those, then you can be able to answer this question more effectively. So students then are given 4 different options in this example of a learning tree of maybe taking a text training, reading some more instructions about how to do something, watching a video on how to do something, doing performing addition, or watch a different video on rounding numbers. And then at the end of each these 3, they then get another question that's a smaller question that asks them to prove that they have learned this smaller skill. And once they've done that, then they can go back and retry that original question. Or in the 4th example here, this just gives you 2 small little sample questions that if they did both of these practice questions, then they can go back and retry that first one. So this is a learning tree. And it's made that way because this is the trunk and then these are the branches. But these blue boxes here are all just questions that are already in the adaptive library. So you can build questions. You can build trees by using existing questions in our data bank. Question, Neil?
Yeah, I was just curious. So if a student comes in and they already know the skill, they just answer the one question and they're done? Or I was just kind of
Yeah, so
curious
if
how it
they
all
started this
works.
top question here and they already know how to do it, they don't have to do the learning tree. They just get it right and move on with their homework. But if they get it wrong, then to get it a chance or how you can, there's different ways you can set it up. But in order to earn more attempts, then you can have them go through and try one of these other things. So it's a way to have them look at the strategy map for solving a question and then identify which of these things that they should probably learn more about in order to earn another attempt. Mm-hmm. And the word adapt actually came from the desire to build these more adaptive learning platforms there. Yes, I did mention. So you can still, even if you get the question right, you can still look at the tree and you can still use that to help yourself. If you're like, hey, I got it right, but I'm not sure if I got it right for the right reasons. Maybe I just guessed right. Then you can still go in there and take a look at the learning trees as well. So those give you some examples of the different types of work we do. When you log into Adapt as an instructor, which I'm going to go ahead and pop out of here, from any of our LibreTexts sites, there will always be a rocket ship in the upper left-hand corner. So I just went to LibreTexts.org, but you could go to any of your libraries that you're used to going to, and they'll always have that rocket ship in the corner. That rocket ship is going to our launch pad. And our launch pad, I showed the picture of it earlier on today, has all 16 of our libraries, as well as all of these platforms that we have that support learning or training or authoring. So this adapt one is right there. It's the second one. We do operate with a single sign-on. So if you have a registered username for LibreText, then you have access to all of these things with that one username. And I'm going to put in LibreText. If you do not have an account with LibreText, sorry. If you do not have an account with LibreText, you can register and we'll make sure you can get a verified instructor account before you leave today. So go ahead and do that. Otherwise, you can go to Adapt and just like normal, when you're logged in, you will, just like your LMS, you'll just see a list of all of your courses. So every single one of your courses each semester will have a new course. And if you wanted to get started really quickly with what we're working with, then you can import courses that exist. And Neil did mention that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this import course. And you can see that a lot of courses have already been built for you. So this is there's Adapt level 4. That's the one that I copied from somebody else. And so I have a copy of it as well. The one that I am working with you is called Introduction to Adapt Homework. So if you wanted to look for that, there is an Introduction to Adapt Homework with my name, Justin Sorb. And if you were to click on that, you could import in an exact copy of that practice homework set that I had you go to with a QR code. So you can bring that one in, and when you bring it into your course, you'll get one that ends with the word import. As you can see, I demonstrate getting imported courses quite often. And once you're inside of that course, you'll have a bunch of different options. If you click on that gear icon, there's a lot of different things you can set up for having different co-instructors, graders, having accessing students, putting them into groups, accessibility. I'm going to go through a few of these as well, but I did want to point out there are a couple key features people always ask us about. Modality. there are basically really two modalities that I want to mention. This is the traditional and the formative. And that would be traditional is what you're usually thinking about. It'll go in the gradebook. Students need to be logged in. We'll keep track of your scores. We'll give them feedback. They can go revisit those questions and look at the feedback and their answers again, all of that. Formative questions are not graded. So that what you did today with that little scanning code, those ones would be a formative style. So you can go there, you can post things, but you notice it didn't keep your name attached to anything because it's not keeping track of your names. And then we could also do in anonymous ones as well. So that's what we call the modality. Used to be called summative and formative, but it's easier to think about something will be in the gradebook or it's not going to have an entry in the gradebook. And of course, you could always make a traditional assignment that's worth 0 points, but that way you can get the feedback saved as well. At the bottom is this LMS option. I'm currently logged in as a LibreTexts member. We don't have a learning management associated with this, but if you did have a learning management system, such as Canvas or Blackboard, and your campus was linked up to it, which is free to do, someone on your campus just basically follows a quick video and links up with the API and the LMS LTI. And then those things are linked together, and you have an option here, yes or no, in order to link your courses with your Canvas or Blackboard instance, and the gradebooks will sync straight back, and your students' logins will come straight from your Canvas. So everything is embedded and works just smoothly there. All right. Here are some other cool things that are available. We do have our auto release feature where you can make an assignment that might be just a certain number of days after the due date in order for scores to be released. So they have days after. You can do hours after. So very easy to manipulate these sorts of automatic release functions. In the assignment properties, we do have the ability to make a QR code. So it will generate a QR code for any assignment that you want. So today I gave you that QR code that was generated by Adapt. I didn't make that myself. You can also make a QR code for any question that's in your assignment. So if you want to do like clicker style or interactivity in your classroom for people to go and submit questions while they're working in your classroom, you can just put that QR code on your screen. Again, that's automatically generated by Adapt, along with a link that students can use. And we also have really nice ways to deal with shifting your dates around. So you can move all of your dates at the same time, or being able to bump back all of your dates back by a week. So if you were running a little bit behind and you want to bump all your assignments back by 3 days, you can do that as well. I did mention that we have lots of different options for the course, but we also have lots of different options for the questions. And for logging in, you can embed questions into textbooks. You can use different types of grader notifications to keep your TAs on track so that you can get reminded, hey, you need to do your homework. I mean, you need to do your grading. Your grading hasn't been submitted yet. And then you can also, if you don't link through your LMS for your student roster, then you can add whitelisted domains to your students so they can only log in if they've got the right email address. They can't log in with their, let's say, Gmail account, so then you can't get the grades back into your own personal gradebook. Those sorts of things can also be really helpful as well. We do have, I think, probably the best of its kind ability to deal with accessibility. A lot of the questions that are out there, a lot of the homework systems that are out there are actually not accessible. Especially the more interactive they are, the less likely they are to be accessible. And in fact, H5P in general is not accessible for most of the more interactive type of ones that they use. But we do know people like to be able to use these interactive things. And then for the students who can use them, they can be a more engaging way to build through things. But we need to make sure we're accessible. We are a grant-funded, grant-built institution that has always cared about accessibility from both our funding sources as well as because we are educators who care about accessibility and to make sure the students are served in ways that meet their needs. So within LibreTexts, we can specify which students should be getting an accessible alternative question. So if you have an interactive question, these students would be provided the alternative question, and then you simply just go ahead and choose another adapt question to put in as the alternative. So for instance, if I'm looking at in a question and I'm saying this interactive polar plot is clearly has some interactive things. that might not be available to an unsighted student. And if you go and look at the edit for the question, there is this accessible alternatives where you just find an adapt ID where you can give students some HTML instructions to accompany this, maybe some descriptions or other materials you want to make sure students know. And then for the graded part, give them some alternative question that is accessible. And so you can find those questions inside of when you're searching through our database. Everything in Adapt is really simple and easy to find. Every question down below has little check boxes. So this is actually their Adapt ID number right here, which I'm going to go ahead and jump down to another technology. Let's say we're going to find a multiple choice one, because those are definitely going to be accessible. I'm going to search our 310,000 questions for all of our multiple choice questions. And down below, these are a bunch of multiple choice questions. And over here is this Adapt ID right there. If I just copy that, the little bitty icon automatically copies it. And when I am, back at my questions, back to my dashboard, my courses, Introduction to Adapt homework. I'm working with this assignment. I was talking about this interactive polar plot, and I'm going to edit that question, and I'm going to provide an accessible alternative by just pasting in that question there. So that way you can give that student an option to have another question, and here's that question that's available there. So this way, students that need accessible options, they are actually not aware that they're being given an accessible alternative. It just shows up as part of their homework. So for some embedding things, LibreTexts, since it's all the same environment, any of these questions, whether they're formative, meaning ungraded, and for practice, or they're summative or traditional format, whether they're part of a graded assignment, can be embedded right into our textbooks. So you could have your LibreText textbook with some interactive H5P that is graded, or a student who would be looking at that logged in would be given a accessible alternative. So now a big question for a lot of people is really, how much does this cost? If you're wanting to look into this really powerful homework system for your campus, how much is this going to cost your institution? How much does it cost for you to access this? How much will your students have to pay? And, it costs us to keep these things up and going. So I'm going to tell you right now, it doesn't cost anything. Your instructor can access the student bank and question bank right now. You can go and get a free registration on LibreTexts. A verified account is required to be able to access all the answers to the questions, of course. So you need to have an instructor account. But being able to build your own questions, using this in your LibreText textbook in a formative way, that's all free. Students will not pay for a course in LibreText. They don't pay, they only pay on a per semester or term basis, which is $15. So that is a subscription model, not a per course sign-up fee. So if your institution has a biology class, a math class, and an English class who all want to use Adapt, the student still is only responsible to pay $15 once, and they can take as many classes as you want. So it's a really great way for institutions to lower the burden for as many classes as possible without having that scaling up of price that you get with a lot of for-profit publisher models. So that's a maximum cost of $30 a year. The subscription is 6 months. So if they take summer classes or you're on a trimester or something like that, it's still only $30. That's because the cost scales really with the security of student data for us. So having more and more students costs us more money to maintain that FERPA standard of secure data that we have there. Adding more questions, adding more courses really doesn't scale that as well. And I will point out, if you are from California, the state of California did fund the building of Adapt. And in exchange for that, all California institutions get Adapt completely for free. So if you are an instructor in the state of California, then you actually get to use it for free, and your students get to use it for free as well. That was a great investment that we think a great return on investment that the state of California is getting to be able to use this for free everywhere. Great. So, that was not supposed to be there. So I did want to point out there is a lot of stuff here for you to learn. We have a lot of support. So actually, I didn't put the support thing here, so I'm going to go to it. If you're at the LibreTexts page, any LibreTexts, and you click on that question, that launch pad to go back to our set of materials, we do have a support center here. This support center has a long, long list in the Insight. In fact, I'm going to log in with my other browser real quick, so you can see what it looks like when you're not an employee of LibreTexts. So you can check on the insights here. The insight is basically a frequently asked questions guide for a lot of things. And this is the place where ADAPT is the most documented. So you can search for a whole bunch of things like ADAPT, discuss it. And we have a bunch of question and answers there about discuss it. And we try our best to put in as many either videos or screenshots along the way as possible. So that is our support center. Also in our support center, another way to get to the support center is to click on this blue question mark button in the bottom right corner that saves the page. So if you're working on a question in ADAPT and you're very confused about something, you can always click this. It'll capture who you are, who you're logged in as, and what question you're looking at. So we can go and find out exactly where you were when it happened and to help you out. So we do recommend that you press that little button. If you are on ADAPT, then you do not have the little blue circle in the corner. Instead, you have a support button that's right on the top. They both do the same thing. You click on that, you click on this contact support, and you can submit a question. We don't have a team overseas that's answering these questions. It's either myself, my colleague Jennifer, who's here on the call, or my colleague Delmar, who's here on the call. So it's going to be one of probably the three of us, and we have a couple other people who join us as well. Yep. Great. In addition to that, launching this week, we also have, if you're on this thing, there is a connections button there, or if you're on the Launchpad, there is a connections button here as well. This takes you to our forum, which launched just yesterday formally. And within here, we have a whole area on ADAPT where you can feel free to ask a bunch of questions and get some questions support from other people. I know Neil is there on there as well, and we can all pitch in to give example questions and maybe ways we've used different types of questions in class, all those sorts of questions. We're hoping to get as many people involved in talking about how to get the support that they need. And of course, we do have a support forum as well. Here, if you have a question that's kind of open-ended and kind of vague and it doesn't need a support ticket, you can always go there and just ask us to help you out that way too. Great. Lastly, I did want to say on the connections, there is a seeking collaborators area. So if you're down at the bottom this is actually in the general area. They're seeking collaborators. So if you're somebody who wants to build a question bank and you don't know if you can build the whole question bank yourself and you're curious to see who might want to help us, might want to work with you on that, we have a couple groups that have already said that they would love to find some people to work with them on new textbooks or new question banks. And we're building groups of people all the time to work on that. So with that, I'm going to jump down and mention one last support that is great. We offer free monthly webinars. So every other month, we have a Basics for Beginners, which is about LibreTexts in general. February, last month, we did have one on finding resources and beginning the authoring process. This month will be another Basics for Beginners in the third week of the month. Our April webinar will be on remixing and building custom books. The June webinar will be on ADAPT and will be similar to today's, except for more interactive, and we can kind of work through some things. And I wanted to push for our LibreFest. So if you'd love to learn how to use these materials, but it's hard to find the time, we recommend that you take that week that LibreFest is. We have a lot of workshops, hands-on materials. We will help you build your classes, whether it's ADAPT or it's a textbook. And there's a lot of open-ended office hour time for you to get as much help as you need to while you work on that. And then moving on from there throughout the rest of the year. So with that, I wanted to put up that QR code one more time if you wanted to go back and play around with some of those things. If you're a chemist, I highly recommend going to that submit molecule question. and using the little camera to do that. And other than that, I wanted to go ahead and stop that recording and then open it up to have just some conversation and answer some questions.